Her best friend said my girlfriend cheated and asked if I wanted to take revenge. Her best friend said, "Your wife and my boyfriend have slept together. Do you want to get back at them by sleeping with me?" Wang Mingyu came to my shop, took out a hotel room card, and said this to me. I was doing inventory at the time, and hearing her say that, I was stunned. "What?" I said. "Qian Qian and Zhao Kai are together. Don't you want to get back at them in the same way?" Wang Mingyu said urgently, repeating herself when she saw that I was stunned. What she said was a lot to take in, and I couldn't process it for a moment. Xu Qianqian cheated with Zhao Kai? Get back at them. Their wife, she mentioned, was actually my girlfriend, Xu Qianqian. I met her more than a year ago through an introduction, thought she was beautiful and had a nice personality, so we started dating. Wang Mingyu's boyfriend, Zhao Kai, was someone she met through a blind date just last month. He works at a bank and is also quite handsome. They had even come to our place for dinner a few times. I checked the date and said, "Tomorrow is April Fool's Day." Last year, on April Fool's Day, Xu Qianqian used Wang Mingyu to test me, wondering if I would be tempted and cheat with her best friend. I didn't expect a new prank this year. I'm serious. I have proof of their affair. Wang Mingyu saw that I didn't believe her, so she immediately started pulling out her phone, a serious expression on her face. "You wouldn't be trying to trick me by making Zhao Kai hug Qianqian and taking a few pictures, right?" I laughed and went back to doing my inventory, not taking it seriously. My relationship with Xu Qianqian was great, and just over a month ago, we moved in together. Look for yourself. Wang Mingyu placed her phone in front of me. While I was still doing inventory, I glanced at it absent-mindedly, and then my mind exploded. It was a hotel hallway surveillance video. Although a little blurry, it was obvious it was them. The two of them were kissing passionately in the hallway, walking forward, their lips nearly glued together. The video ended when they entered a room, and the date on the surveillance showed it was 3 days ago, around 10 p.m. I wasn't home that night, I was out drinking with clients and singing karaoke, and didn't return until 2 a.m. This wasn't a prank for April Fool's Day. I was suddenly filled with shame and anger. "I have more evidence," Wang Mingyu said. "Show me." I forced down my anger and told her. But Wang Mingyu said, "Go to the hotel. I'll show you there." I looked at Wang Mingyu, and a strong desire to get revenge surged within me. Zhao Kai fooled around with my girlfriend, so I could fool around with his girlfriend to get even, right? And to be honest, Wang Mingyu was even more beautiful than Xu Qianqian, and her figure was better. Wang Mingyu had a tall, slender frame, while Xu Qianqian was petite and cute. Also, Wang Mingyu wasn't like Xu Qianqian, who liked to act all delicate and needy. Wang Mingyu was strong-willed and had a proud, cool demeanor, always exuding a spirit of defiance. The first time Xu Qianqian introduced me to Wang Mingyu, I was stunned by her beauty. Men, after all, love beautiful women. It had nothing to do with whether I had a girlfriend or not. But it was only admiration since I was already in a relationship and things were going well. There were too many beautiful things in the world that weren't meant for you. If you were lucky enough to admire them, that was enough. Don't overthink it. Thinking about how Xu Qianqian looked so lost in pleasure in the video, I felt more disgust than anger. I quickly regained my composure. "Mingyu, don't act impulsively. Honestly, I didn't need to see any more evidence. That video was enough." But Wang Mingyu looked displeased and said, "They've already slept together, and not just once. And you're telling me not to act impulsively." Saying that, she shoved the hotel room card into my hand. "This is your one chance. You decide whether to go or not." After Wang Mingyu left my shop, I immediately picked up my phone, ready to call Xu Qianqian. Had I not been good enough to her? Had I failed to satisfy her physically or materially? But I never dialed the number. Xu Qianqian's affair is already a foregone conclusion. From the moment I saw the video, it was clear that our relationship was over. But I can't just let it slide. I want revenge. If they disgust me, I'll make sure they don't get away without feeling it. With that in mind, I glanced at the room key in my hand and then closed the shop's roller door. To be honest, who wouldn't think of conquering someone like Wang Mingyu, a woman with such a strong presence? Now the opportunity is right in front of me, and I'm doing it for revenge. They were wrong first, I'm in the right. I was excited to go, my mind full of thoughts of revenge and venting. But the moment I opened the door, I changed my mind. If I really went ahead and booked a room with Huang Mingyu, what would be the difference between us and them? What are you doing standing at the door? Come in. Just as I was hesitating whether to leave or not, Huang Mingyu called out from inside the room. I hesitated for a moment but decided to go in. I wanted to talk to her face to face. I had thought that by the time I arrived, Huang Mingyu would have already showered and be waiting for me in bed. But when I entered, I found her sitting at the desk by the window, smoking. It was the first time I had seen her smoke. Her hair was definitely washed, but she was dressed neatly. Her stunning face no longer showed the anger from before she had already calmed down. I said to her, "I've thought it over, we can't do this." Huang Mingyu glanced at me and said, "What? You're not mad? You don't want revenge?" I nodded, "I am mad. I do want revenge. But we're not like them." Huang Mingyu took a puff of her cigarette, stared at me for a long time without saying anything. Finally, she took out a cigarette and tossed it to me. After I lit it, she said, "I was impulsive earlier. After all, Zhao Kai and I have only been together for a month, and we haven't even held hands much. If it comes down to it, we'll just break up. There's nothing more to say. I'm just angry at Qian Qian. Why does she have to seduce my boyfriend? I've been so good to her, treated her like a sister. I feel sorry for you, you've been so good to her." I took a drag and smiled bitterly. Maybe what I think is good isn't what she wants. Huang Mingyu looked at me, a fleeting look of sympathy on her face. "So, what are you going to do? Go back and confront her?" I shook my head. "I'm not sure yet. By the way, didn't you say you had more evidence?" At that moment, Huang Mingyu put out her cigarette and took out her phone, sending me a WeChat message. In addition to the earlier surveillance video, there was also a forwarded chat record. I opened it and immediately felt a rush of blood to my head. "Little sweetheart, baby, I just left the hotel, and I'm already thinking about you. Kai Yin, little temptress, weren't you satisfied earlier? Little sweetheart, you're so annoying. I just miss you. Kai Yin, it's boring to keep booking rooms. When will it be more fun to go to your place? Little sweetheart, wait until he's not home, and I'll text you he. Little sweetheart and Kai Yin were Shu Qianqian and Zhao Kai's WeChat usernames, and their profile pictures matched. The time of this conversation matched shortly after the hotel room video. The previous chat history was even worse, with Shu Qianqian sending selfies while in the shower. I took a deep drag on the cigarette, feeling so disgusted I didn't want to read further. I scrolled all the way to the top, wanting to see when they started. Before I could reach it, Huang Mingyu spoke. "It was a week after I first took Zhao Kai to dinner with you guys. Qian made the first move on Zhao Kai, but he didn't refuse. Earlier, I had actually wondered whether it was because I was too good to her that she didn't want it." At that moment, I subconsciously looked at Huang Mingyu, and the desire for revenge surged in my chest again. I immediately put out the cigarette and walked toward Huang Mingyu. She was startled and instinctively stood up. "Xiangzi." I looked at Huang Mingyu, breathing heavily. "Didn't you call me here?" Huang Mingyu panicked. "I was just acting on impulse, Xiangzi, don't be impulsive. You've always been calm, and you just said it yourself, we'd be no different from them." Seeing the fear in her face and the panic in her eyes, I regained my composure. What was I doing? No matter how much I wanted to get back at Shu Qianqian and Zhao Kai, it wasn't right to hurt Huang Mingyu. I couldn't let my own feelings cause harm to her. Realizing this, I calmed down and quickly said to Huang Mingyu, "I'm sorry, Huang Mingyu let out a long sigh of relief and then comforted me. "It's fine, I understand. I know you, just like me, were also temporarily overwhelmed by emotions." Hearing Huang Mingyu say this, I nodded at her. "Mingyu, thank you." She smiled at me. "No problem. No matter what happens with them, we'll always be friends." I responded with a simple millimeter, left the room key behind, said nothing further, and left the hotel. When Huang Mingyu heard the door close, she seemed lost in thought for a moment, then finally let out a deep sigh. When I got home and opened the door, I saw Shu Qianqian, wearing an apron and bustling around in the kitchen, humming a tune. Seeing her in this virtuous manner, I can connect her to the video and chat history in my mind. You're back? I was just about to call you. I made your favorite old turtle soup." Shu Qianqian winked at me as she saw me enter. I didn't say anything, just sat at the dining table, looking at all the dishes I liked. And there was that big bowl of greenish turtle soup. It felt like I was the one being stewed in the bowl by Xu Qianqian. Noticing I wasn't in a good mood, Xu Qianqian served me some rice and asked with concern, "Hubby, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath and said, "It's nothing, just some business stuff." Xu Qianqian looked at me with a compassionate expression and said, "Hubby, I told you before, there's no need to work so hard. If we make more, we'll spend more. If we make less, we'll spend less. You know me, I don't care about money. As long as I'm with you, I'm happy." If she had said this before, I would have happily squeezed her hand, grateful for having such a considerate girlfriend. But today, I didn't react at all. Xu Qianqian didn't say much more and immediately filled a large bowl of soup for me. I not only drank it, but also ate all the turtle from the pot. Seeing this, Xu Qianqian smiled mischievously, "Eating so much. What are you planning to do? Do it." I immediately put down my bowl and dragged her into the room for some action. Since I had already decided not to buy it, I might as well make the most of it before returning it. The next morning, when Xu Qianqian woke up, I had already packed my suitcase. She blinked her sleepy eyes and saw me sitting expressionlessly on the sofa. She looked surprised. "Hubby, so early? What's the suitcase for? Are you going on a business trip?" I didn't say anything, just forwarded her the surveillance video. After watching it, her face immediately changed. "Hubby, this video must be AI generated, that's not me." I sneered and then sent her the chat history. When Xu Qianqian looked at the messages, her eyes went wide. I saw all sorts of complicated expressions cross her face in that moment. She suddenly grabbed my arm. "Hubby, listen to me, it's not what you think." I lit a cigarette and watched her performance with interest. "Oh?" Xu Qianqian hurriedly said, "Zhao Kai works at a bank. Didn't you want him to help with the loan?" "So?" I took a deep drag on my cigarette. "So you invited him to your bed?" Xu Qianqian quickly shook her head. "No, he seduced me. No, he blackmailed me. I was forced." I shrugged slightly. "He blackmailed you into sending him shower pictures? He blackmailed you into booking a room for him? He blackmailed you into calling him hubby every time you text?" Xu Qianqian was stunned. She had only skimmed through the chat history earlier. Now, hearing me mention all the details, she realized I had already seen all of their conversations. Seeing her stand there frozen, with no further explanation, I got up, grabbed my suitcase, and opened the door. Xu Qianqian rushed over and hugged me from behind. "Hubby, I was wrong. You're always so busy, I was just too bored, please don't go. I promise I won't contact him again." I threw the suitcase out the door, pushed her hands off me, and said, "Who said I'm leaving? This is my house, why should I leave?" Xu Qianqian froze at this, and I shoved her out the door, slamming it shut with a loud bang. Only then did she react and immediately started knocking on the door. "Hubby. Hubby." I couldn't be bothered to respond and directly locked the door. I had burned a lot of gas driving last night, and I hadn't slept well. I needed to refuel. When I woke up, it was already almost noon. I picked up my phone to check the time and found quite a few messages. Most of them were from Xu Qianqian. "Hubby, I know I was wrong. Don't be angry, I know you still love me. Hubby, let us start over. Please forgive me just this once. Hubby. Let us get married, let us get our marriage license today." I couldn't be bothered to read any further. What is she thinking? She still wants to get a marriage license. Does she really think she is above it all? Without responding, I blocked both her phone number and WeChat. Then I noticed there were messages from Huang Mingyu as well. Inside were the chat records between Xu Qianqian and Zhao Kai. I opened them, and it turned out to be from this morning. "Little sweetheart, Wang Cheng knows about us. We have video footage from the hotel corridor and chat records." "Kai Yin, huh? What happened? Does Mingyu know?" "Little sweetheart, how would I know? He came back fine last night, kept me up all night, and then today he is like this." "Kai Yin, let us talk tonight when I'm off work." "I'm at work now, you go book a room and wait for me." Looking at the timing of their chat, it was clearly before Xu Qianqian had sent her messages asking for forgiveness. I couldn't help but sneer. HMPH, they are asking me to forgive them and wanting to get married? But then something struck me. How did Huang Mingyu get her hands on the chat records so quickly? And from the message, Zhao Kai said he was at work. I immediately called Huang Mingyu. I got straight to the point. Did you install software on Zhao Kai's phone? Huang Mingyu didn't hide anything, millimeter. I've suspected for a while that he has been up to something behind my back, but I didn't expect it to be Chen Qian. I asked Huang Mingyu, I've already confronted Xu Chen. What do you plan to do? Huang Mingyu sneered, what has to be done? Let him stew in his own mess. Zhao Kai has too many problems. I've only sent you his chats with Chen Qian. Besides, I don't care about his other issues. After all, it's a new thing between us, and there is no emotional foundation. I just hate how he ate from the same nest and how Chen Qian treated me this way. Although Zhao Kai is not a good guy either. I checked the time, alright, let us have lunch together. You give me all the information you have. Huang Mingyu asked, you're going after Zhao Kai? I sneered, Sholden Ti. What, don't tell me you're reluctant. Huang Mingyu immediately spat, no way, of course not. Fine, let us meet at noon. After hanging up, I got up and changed into a fresh outfit. I went to the master bedroom, ripped off the bedding and tossed it on the floor. Then I gathered up all of Xu Qian's things she hadn't taken with her, wrapped them in the bedding, took them downstairs, and threw them in the trash. Before leaving, I changed the password on the fingerprint lock and deleted her fingerprint. As I was about to leave, I heard a voice behind me, hubby, you're finally coming out. I recognized it as Xu Qian's voice. She had been waiting for me in the garage. Without looking back, I got in the car, locked the door as soon as I sat down. Sure enough, when she saw me in the car, she immediately came over, trying to pull at the door. I didn't give her a single glance and immediately drove the car out of the garage. Just before I left the underground garage, I vaguely heard Xu Qian shout, Wang Qiang, you bastard. I turned on the music and let the soft tunes help me relax. It's just a car I once liked. After the test drive, I found a lot of issues, including an oil leak. I decided not to buy it, so what's the big deal? It's just the person who tried to snatch the driver's seat during my test drive. He is unforgivable. Soon, I arrived at the restaurant where I was supposed to meet Huang Mingyu. She was there before me and had already ordered me a coffee. Today, she looked more elegant than yesterday in her outfit. After sitting down across from her, she stared at me for a moment before saying, not bad, you don't look too worn out. I thought to myself, luckily I ate a whole turtle last night, or with the long drive, I might have looked worse. I also looked at Huang Mingyu and said, you look better than I expected. Huang Mingyu shrugged and said, I've told you a few times, I just started with Zhao Kai, and the relationship wasn't strong to begin with. If we break up, so be it. I don't care. But you've been with Chen Qian for over a year. I took a sip of coffee, and it was actually my favorite flavor. I couldn't help but glance at Huang Mingyu. How did you know I don't like sugar and milk? Huang Mingyu shrugged. It's not like we haven't had meals together before, a few times and you'll know. I nodded and then asked, what other problems does Zhao Kai have? Huang Mingyu didn't speak but instead took out her phone and kept forwarding me messages. I read each one, and just reading the first one shattered my worldview. The other person was a nearly 50-year-old rich woman. Zhao Kai, trying to please her, asked her to help him with his savings business, and kept calling her little sister. Looking at the chat records, it was clear they had rented a room together. There were more messages like this, with older women who had some assets. Occasionally, there were younger ones, but they weren't very good looking, and Zhao Kai still called them dear. I felt goosebumps all over. Is Zhao Kai working at a bank, or is he working at a KTV? Huang Mingyu said at this point, this isn't even the worst part. Keep reading. I kept looking through Zhao Kai's chat records with others. One message caught my attention. He was trying to convince a rich woman to buy their financial products. He spoke in extravagant terms, promising huge returns, much better than deposit savings, without mentioning any risks. I couldn't help but mutter, this is basically fraud, right? Huang Mingyu nodded, definitely, and there is more than one person like this. But this isn't even the most disgusting part. I frowned and looked at Huang Mingyu, what is more disgusting? Huang Mingyu's expression shifted slightly, clearly trying to control her emotions. After she finished her sip of coffee, she finally said, I met Zhao Kai through my mom's friend, Aunt Liu. A sudden realization hit me, and I felt something was off. Sure enough, Huang Mingyu continued, this Aunt Liu is one of Zhao Kai's clients, and she has also been fooled into buying a lot of financial products. Their chat records are just as unpleasant. I was about to ask to see them, but Wang Mingyu said, I haven't sent you Aunt Liu's records. Don't look at them. I said, still, send me a copy. Wang Mingyu's face turned slightly red as she said, why do you want to see all this disgusting stuff? I said to Wang Mingyu, to deal with Zhao Kai, maybe your Aunt Liu is the best person to flip. Wang Mingyu seemed to understand what I meant, but she still didn't send it to me. Instead, she opened her phone, found the record, and said, I'm not sending this one to you, you should come over and see for yourself. As soon as I heard that, I knew this message had to do with Zhao Kai and Aunt Liu discussing some of Wang Mingyu's private matters. It made sense that Wang Mingyu didn't want me to know. I took my coffee cup and sat next to Wang Mingyu. She slowly flipped through the chat records for me, but she was very nervous, flipping through them quickly. I immediately spotted a message. Spring blossoms, huh? Xiao Kai, you can't do it either. It's been a month and you still haven't won that girl over. Kai Yin, I don't know what's wrong with her, she won't even let me hold her hand for more than a minute. As for kissing, don't even think about it. Wang Mingyu saw the message, quickly brushed over it, and a faint, almost imperceptible flush appeared on her face. I said, looks like your Aunt Liu has spent quite a bit of money on Zhao Kai. Wang Mingyu cleared her throat and said, yeah, I've done the math. It's at least over $4 million. I immediately took a deep breath. Take me to meet this Aunt Liu. Wang Mingyu asked, what do you plan to do? Before I could answer, I heard a woman's voice from behind, oh, now it's my problem. I bet you've been together this whole time, haven't you? Both Wang Mingyu and I slightly changed our expressions, as we both recognized the voice. It was Xu Qianqian's. The few other customers around also turned their heads in surprise when they heard her shout. I pretended not to hear and stood up, saying to Wang Mingyu, let us go. Wang Mingyu nodded, grabbed her bag, and followed me. But Xu Qianqian wasn't letting go. Wang Mingyu, do you have a conscience? I considered you my best friend, and now you're secretly dating my boyfriend. Wang Mingyu suddenly stopped, turned around, and glared at her. Xu Qianqian, don't play the victim. You know best what you've done. I don't want to embarrass you in front of everyone. If you keep making trouble, I'll send what I have to your parents. Xu Qianqian, who had been arrogant and seemed like she had caught something on us, immediately fell silent after hearing Wang Mingyu's words. I couldn't be bothered to even look at her and directly walked out to the car. Wang Mingyu got into the passenger seat. By the time Xu Qianqian came out, our car had already driven away. She immediately took out her phone and quickly sent a message to Zhao Kai, Wang Qiang is with Mingyu. Not long after, Wang Mingyu's phone rang. She glanced at it and frowned, Zhao Kai. I couldn't help but say, Xu Qianqian must have told him that you're with me. Wang Mingyu snorted, although I haven't confronted him yet, I really can't stand him now. I said, pick up. It'll be good to hear how he tries to explain himself. Wang Mingyu then pressed the speakerphone button and answered the call. As soon as the call connected, Zhao Kai's voice came through, Mingyu, where are you? Wang Mingyu snorted, why ask if you already know? Didn't Xu Qianqian tell you? Zhao Kai quickly responded, Mingyu, I took time off from work. Let us meet up. I can't explain everything over the phone. Wang Mingyu replied, is it really necessary? Zhao Kai immediately tried to defend himself, I know you won't believe me no matter what I say now. I quickly reached over and pressed the recording button on Wang Mingyu's phone. She understood and gave me a quick glance. Zhao Kai continued on the phone, it's Xu Qianqian, she's the one who seduced me. Wang Qiang must have shown you our chat records, right? You should have seen it, she was the one making all the moves on me. What Zhao Kai said was actually true, but Wang Mingyu still retorted, she seduced you, and you fell for it. So you're this cheap? Zhao Kai immediately pleaded, no, Mingyu, listen to me. The first time, we were both drunk, and I don't remember anything. After that, Xu Qianqian used this to blackmail me, and I had no choice but to give in. Wang Mingyu and I exchanged a knowing glance and couldn't help but smile internally. It was clear that Zhao Kai was making up a story. We just quietly listened while the phone kept recording. Zhao Kai continued to trash Xu Qianqian, painting her as worthless and useless, all while trying to absolve himself of any guilt. Even though Wang Mingyu hated Xu Qianqian for betraying both me and her, she couldn't take it anymore. Enough. I don't want to hear any more. You've said it all, you're just saying it's all Xu Qianqian's fault, and you've done nothing wrong, right? Listen to me, Zhao Kai. Even if Xu Qianqian is dirty or cheap, it's not for you, a worthless dog, to say. Goodbye. I couldn't help but laugh but stayed silent. Wang Mingyu glanced at me. Aren't you going to say something? I cleared my throat and said, oh well, I think your summary is spot on. They are both trash, but Zhao Kai is slightly worse overall. Wang Mingyu burst into laughter at my words. You still have the mood to joke. I shrugged slightly. Come on, the ones in the wrong aren't me, they are. Why should I punish myself for the mistakes of two pieces of trash? Wang Mingyu nodded in agreement. You're right. We need to happily say goodbye to the past, kick out the trash, and protect ourselves. Let us embrace a better future. As she said this, Wang Mingyu made a superhero pose with a clenched fist. It was the first time I saw her make such an adorable gesture, one that Xu Qianqian would usually make. I couldn't help but glance at her a few more times. Wang Mingyu also noticed my gaze and immediately reminded me, focus on driving. We're still young, and we have plenty of time to enjoy our youth. Before long, I drove us to Aunt Liu's house. Aunt Liu was dressed flamboyantly, wearing gold and silver and heavy makeup, watering flowers in her villa. When she saw us, she immediately greeted us enthusiastically and invited us in. Wang Mingyu didn't waste time with pleasantries and directly placed her chat records with Zhao Kai in front of Aunt Liu. Aunt Liu's expression changed drastically, and she stood frozen for a while, unable to speak. After a moment, she came to her senses and hurriedly explained to Wang Mingyu, Mingyu, it's not what you think. Wang Mingyu was too lazy to waste words with her and directly said, is this the usual excuse people like you give after doing something like this? I then asked Aunt Liu, did Zhao Kai ever mention the risks of the investment products he made you buy? Aunt Liu shook her head, stunned, and replied, no, he said it was a sure thing, no risk at all. I continued, if we asked you to report him to the police now, could you do that? Aunt Liu's expression changed, how could I? I invested without telling your Uncle Liu. If he finds out, what am I supposed to do? Wang Mingyu then said, at this point, do you think you can still hide it? I added, we could just sent these records directly to your husband. When Aunt Liu heard this, she immediately panicked, Mingyu, I'm sorry, don't tell your Uncle Liu, if he finds out, I'm finished. Wang Mingyu pondered for a moment, clearly not wanting to destroy Aunt Liu's family. I then said, just report him to the police. If you need to make a statement or go to court, Mingyu can accompany you. We can request a closed trial. Wang Mingyu agreed with my suggestion and nodded, this is the greatest leniency we can offer. Aunt Liu was still hesitating, sweat running down her face and smearing her makeup, looking both pitiful and laughable. But considering how she had brought this upon herself, she didn't deserve pity. I then said, why don't you call Zhao Kai and ask him how much is left in those investment products? Aunt Liu's eyes lit up, you mean, they dropped in value? I shook my head, I don't know, that's why I'm asking you to check. If he says they've gone up, tell him you want to cash out and see if he allows it. Aunt Liu quickly took out her phone and dialed Zhao Kai. Wang Mingyu, following my lead, pressed the speakerphone and recording button on Aunt Liu's phone. Aunt Liu then asked, Xiao Kai, what's the situation with my investments now? Zhao Kai's voice came from the phone, the situation is great, they've gone up quite a bit. I think you should take this opportunity and buy more. Aunt Liu replied, Xiao Kai, sorry, there is something urgent at home, I need to cash out some money, can you help? Zhao Kai quickly responded, cash out. If you do that now, you might lose some of the profit. Aunt Liu quickly said, I've got 4 million with you, it's grown quite a bit. Can you calculate for me? I don't mind not taking the new profits, I just want the principal. Zhao Kai started to hesitate, I'm telling you, it's really not a good time to exit. Aunt Liu, even if she were a bit slow, understood by now, so, I've lost money. After a moment of hesitation, Zhao Kai replied, to be honest, the market is not doing well right now, but don't worry. Wang Mingyu gave Aunt Liu a look, and Aunt Liu understood, let us leave it at that for now, we'll contact you again. After hanging up, I said to Aunt Liu, now you believe it, right? From the start, Zhao Kai has been lying to you. Aunt Liu said, Mingyu, can you give me some time to think about it? Wang Mingyu replied, at most until tomorrow, if you don't contact me first thing tomorrow, I'll send everything to Uncle Liu. I glanced at Aunt Liu, who looked dazed and lost, and couldn't help but shake my head. Just as we were about to leave, my phone received a text message, and I froze when I saw it. Wang Mingyu looked at me in surprise. What's wrong? I immediately said, 36,000 yuan was withdrawn from my account. And it was withdrawn from several different banks. I suddenly remembered that even though I had driven Xu Qianqian away, I still had a bank card with her. Wang Mingyu seemed to understand. Did Qianqian take it? I nodded, then removed Xu Qianqian from my blacklist and called her. But she immediately hung up without answering. Wang Mingyu then showed me her phone. Zhao Kai contacted Qianqian earlier. I looked at the time on their chat records. It was right after Wang Mingyu and I left Aunt Liu's house. Zhao Kai was trying to borrow money from Xu Qianqian, and his reasoning was similar to what he had told Aunt Liu. He said the bank was running a promotion with a highly profitable investment product. People inside the bank had bought it, but he didn't have enough money and was trying to borrow from Xu Qianqian. He even promised to pay her back with both the principal and interest once he made a profit, and if it lost, it would be his responsibility. I was stunned. Did Xu Qianqian really take the money without even thinking? I tried calling Xu Qianqian a few more times, but she still didn't answer. I then dialed Zhao Kai's number again. He picked up, but didn't say anything. I said directly, every penny Xu Qianqian took from you was taken without asking for my account. If you dare to accept it, just wait to end up in jail. Wang Mingyu took the opportunity to show Aunt Liu the messages Zhao Kai had sent to Xu Qianqian earlier. See, when he was deceiving you, was he using the same lines? I then stood up and said, I don't care how long you need to think, I'm going to report this to the police. Once that happens, if you get involved, it won't be my problem anymore. When Aunt Liu heard this, she immediately stood up and said, then I'll go with you. Wang Mingyu and I exchanged a glance and immediately took Aunt Liu to report the matter to the police. After we explained the situation, the police immediately started an investigation. The police also called Xu Qianqian, and this time, she answered. But after hearing the police, she immediately said, that's my own money, why can't I withdraw it? The police asked, it's your own money? Is the card registered under your ID? Xu Qianqian responded, it's my boyfriend who gave me the pocket money. The police replied, your boyfriend reported the case, saying that you two have broken up. You'd better come to the police station to explain things. Xu Qianqian stayed silent, but I knew she was scared and wouldn't dare to ignore the request. Soon, Xu Qianqian arrived by taxi. When she saw that both Wang Mingyu and I were there, her expression changed immediately. The police immediately asked her to account for where the money had gone. Xu Qianqian pulled out the cash from her bag. She hadn't even had a chance to give it to Zhao Kai yet. The police then asked her, taking money without asking is theft. Don't you understand this? Then they asked me, now that the money has been recovered, do you want to pursue further action? I thought for a moment and said, forget it, it's my fault for not retrieving the card when we broke up. As long as I get the money back, that's enough. After both sides signed and stamped, we left the police station. However, Wang Mingyu stayed to accompany Aunt Liu while her case was still being processed. Xu Qianqian, who had been quite meek at the police station, coldly sneered at me as soon as we stepped outside. Wang Qiang, you really disgust me. I looked at her in surprise. Xu Qianqian said, I've been with you for a year, and what did I get for all that time? 36,000, what's the big deal? I frowned, who's going to compensate me for the time I wasted on you? And what do you think you're doing with that money? Don't you know how disgusting you are? I didn't report you to the authorities just to settle this in the past year. Damn. After saying that, I turned and walked away, not willing to waste another second with her. Leaving her there to scream helplessly. Later, Wang Mingyu told me that Zhao Kai had been taken from the bank to the police station for questioning. He was taken in front of all his colleagues at the bank, and this time, he was completely finished. Because aside from Aunt Liu's case, he had quite a few similar cases under his belt. One case led to another, and more kept coming to light. After Zhao Kai was arrested, people who had bought investments from him started causing a scene at the bank. Eventually, several of Zhao Kai's cases were combined for trial. But even after Zhao Kai's troubles came to light, Xu Qianqian still refused to believe it. She was convinced that Zhao Kai was framed by me and Wang Mingyu out of revenge. Wang Mingyu sent her the recording of how Zhao Kai had scolded Xu Qianqian that day. After that, Wang Mingyu and I stopped caring about these matters and got back to our own lives. We occasionally met up for a meal or something. Over time, Huang Mingyu and I became friends who could talk about anything. Our relationship even became better than before, but between a man and a woman, there is no such thing as pure friendship. In truth, we both had feelings for each other, and we both knew that our impressions of each other were at least not bad. But we had never broken that barrier. Besides, Huang Mingyu knew that I had just broken up with Xu Lili, and she wasn't sure what I really thought. And although Huang Mingyu had dated Zhao Kai, in this day and age, when they hadn't even held hands a few times, what kind of relationship was that? Later, I heard that Zhao Kai's case was sentenced, but I didn't bother to find out the result. I also heard from Huang Mingyu that Xu Qianqian had left the city. Just at that time, my business had entered its peak season, and I was so busy I didn't have the time to worry about where she went. Afterward, Huang Mingyu would sometimes stop by my shop after work to visit and bring me food. Sometimes, when I had something in my hands and couldn't take a bite, Huang Mingyu would voluntarily feed me. I didn't think much of it and just ate without hesitation. But the people around us all noticed that my relationship with Huang Mingyu was unusual. When Huang Mingyu wasn't around, someone even asked me, "Brother Chong, want me to introduce you to a girlfriend?" I replied directly, "No. Who has time to date?" He smiled, "You must have someone in mind, Mingyu, right?" I just smiled and didn't respond. When I finally got through the peak season, I had some free time again. Just so happened that a friend gave me 2 movie tickets, and the first person I thought of was Huang Mingyu, so I called her. To my surprise, Huang Mingyu said on the phone, "I was just about to call you." What a coincidence, a friend also gave me 2 movie tickets, and I was thinking of inviting you. I laughed and said, "I'm watching a foreign film called Ambiguous Burn, what about you?" Huang Mingyu replied, "I'm watching a Chinese movie, Love Boldly Say It Out Loud." After hearing the movie titles, we both fell silent for a moment. It felt like these 2 movies were tailor-made for us. We compared the show times, and it turned out our movie times were perfectly aligned, with just a 15-minute gap in between. I immediately smiled and said, "Perfect. Let us grab a meal first, then we can watch both movies back to back, no time wasted." That evening, I first went home, took a shower, and changed into clean clothes before heading out. I arrived first and waited for less than 10 minutes before seeing Huang Mingyu arrive. To my surprise, she was wearing the exact same outfit she wore when Xu Qianqian first brought her to meet me. That time, I was in awe, but I didn't dare to look too much, since I had a girlfriend. This time, I looked at Huang Mingyu without holding back. The greatest respect a man can give a woman is to offer her the most appreciation through his gaze. As we ate, we chatted casually and shared everything. She said something with a lot of depth, and I was so taken aback that I couldn't respond for a while. "We're here" was just something we both hadn't said out loud yet. Though Huang Mingyu was proactive in work and life, in matters of the heart, she was still a woman. And even if she wanted to take the initiative, I wouldn't allow it. Because I had decided that tonight, I would take the lead and not leave any regrets. After the movie ended, I planned to confess my feelings to Huang Mingyu. I knew she was also waiting for this moment. The end.